Hey, welcome to Cinema Gulp. I'm Ben.
And I'm John.
And this is our chug review of Get Out. I was going to say Get Shorty or something.
So how long has this been going on, this thing? We hired Georgina and Walter to help care for my parents. When they died, I couldn't bear to let them go.
Get Out is a feature film debut from Jordan Peele, one half of the comedy duo Key and Peele. With Get Out, he's crafted a strange, quirky, sometimes eerie, and always interesting film that adds even more positive marks to the Blumhouse name after a heap of hits this past year. So, John, what did you think of Get Out?
I thought this movie was okay. I wasn't in love with it. I thought it had kind of tonal issues. It just didn't really click for me. I think I was never able to really get into the film in a serious way. It kind of had this mixture of comedy and the horror elements. The thriller and horror elements weren't really effective for me, but I also didn't find the comedy or satire elements very effective for me as well. So I was kind of left just wanting them to nail one or the other. And it just, personally, I just wasn't really satisfied with the results of the film.
I really bought into it. I'm kind of on the opposite end. I thought this movie was fascinating pretty much from start to finish. I love how we're introduced to the two main characters in this real sort of millennial fashion where it's, hey, here's our loft and hey, we're going to go see the parents this weekend. Oh my God, did you tell them? Did I tell them what? There's this kind of like naive cuteness to their kind of relationship, and you see it sort of in the first two opening scenes where you see them in the house and then you see them in the car ride on the way to the parents' house. Sort of a strong relationship, and you know what's sort of coming based off of, if you know anything about what the plot is, even though it's been very well hidden in advertisements, which shocks me as to how it made so much money without it really giving away too much about what it's about in its advertising. I liked Chris and I liked Rose right off the bat. They gave us a little reason to like them. Then you meet his friend that he talks to on the phone, who ends up being a really fun little piece of the film. But to me, this movie, I didn't think it had tonal issues. I found it very satisfying. It was very odd, and everyone you meet is very strange as soon as they get to the small town, and it stays that way, where I think the reactionary shots of Chris's face is really what the comedy is, because I found myself giggling here and there when Bradley Whitmore, who's I think is really effective in his kind of small part as the father, when he's sort of showing him around the house, it's very uncomfortable because he's trying to be like, see, I'm fine, I'm not racist at all, like, and they really like hammer that point.
Yeah, but that point comes across very obviously. Like, I feel like so much of this film just comes across way too obvious. But I did really like the acting. That was the thing that stood out for me. My favorite part of the film was definitely all of the performances except for the girlfriend. I really didn't like her performance at all. I thought her role in this film was too obvious right from the beginning, and that just made me actually kind of dislike a lot of the movie because of that. But everyone else's acting was great. I think the lead actor, not sure of his name, but he was really impressive in a lot of his scenes, especially the hypnosis scenes that he goes through. And there's another scene where he's talking about his past and his mother, and that was a really emotional scene, and I think he did a great job there. The parents in the film were played by Bradley Whitford. Did I get it right?
Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener.
Catherine Keener, she's great. She always she can play cold-hearted like nobody else.
She is just creepy in this movie.
Yeah, she's great. And then Bradley Whitford is funny and charming and creepy all at the same time. And I agree. I think that scene where he's walking around the house is humorous and funny, and there's that strange tension going on. That was one of my issues, where the kind of uneven feel I had in this film is even in the tension. Like, I felt like it was almost kind of this uneasy feeling, but not the real kind that you get from a thriller or a horror, like where you're actually feeling any kind of fear or any kind of fright from the tension. It was just a strange uneasiness. And I do credit the director for being able to create that feeling, which was odd. As you said, there's kind of an oddity to this film. But for it to be either a thriller or horror or a comedy, which I don't think it's really strong in the comedy area. I definitely think it should be considered a thriller or horror with some humorous elements or something. It's not really trying to be a comedy per se. But I do give the director some credit in creating kind of this strange, odd world, but I don't really feel like it's believable in the way that it's perpetrated, that any of this could actually happen.
Jordan Peele's the director. He obviously directs and writes a ton of the Key and Peele show. I'm not sure if you watched any of that sketch comedy show, but a lot of the way this movie is shot feels like an expansive universe in some of those sketches. It really does. The shots on the porch, some of the shots at night, the shots inside the house, upstairs in the room, in the bathroom, a lot of that stuff looks straight out of a Key and Peele sketch. And I think that's done on purpose. You take that sort of aesthetic that he has, and I think you give it to something like Blumhouse, and then you work on the script and you make it dark and you make it inventive in the sense where the way it kind of unfolds, you kind of see it coming at certain points, but you're not everything unfolds in a predictable way. Some elements do. Some elements you're like, wow, that's really interesting the way that played out. And I really enjoyed a lot of sequences in this movie. I love a lot of the hypnotist sequence was really cool.
Yeah, I think there was a really cool visual stamp during some of those scenes. I think that's the best scenes from a directorial standpoint was the hypnosis scenes and I forget what they call it, but the dark place or whatever scenes.
And Daniel Kaluuya, I think that he was so good in this movie. I think he's got a lot of charm and a lot of charisma, and he also seems like he can play tragic if need to be too, because there's moments in this movie where he's talking about his mother and stuff. But you were mentioning the acting. I believe that everybody was pretty bought into it. Even someone like Betty Gabriel, who played Georgina, who was just really creepy.
Another a great small role in this was Stephen Root. He's always fun to see, but he was nice and creepy in this film. Really enjoyed him. So from a cast standpoint, I think this film had a lot of great highlights within the cast. Small moments that really worked. Small dramatic moments and creepy moments that really worked, and all these moments of oddity, but it just didn't coalesce into a film that I was really in love with. I didn't hate this movie by any means.
I was really happy by the end of the movie. I thought it was fun. I was like, good on Peele, man. Good job. Really solid work. In so many ways for me, it was just entertaining. I see exactly where you're coming from. I'm not going to say that I don't see the plot holes and I don't see the predictability. I absolutely do. Sometimes, and you and I had this discussion before, where that makes or breaks things for you. And with me, it's like I can get past those things if I'm still just really enjoying myself.
You're saying that some of this film kind of felt like a sketch comedy act, or it felt like it came from the same place that their sketch comedy kind of comes from. And I felt like there's times in this movie where it felt like a TV movie. It didn't feel cinematic enough. It reminded me, honestly, of something like Tusk, which is a terrible movie. This is far better than Tusk. Not even cinematic in any way, shape, or form. This one has much more interesting visuals at times, especially, like we said, the hypnosis scene. But there was a side to this movie that felt almost TV movie.
Well, you can run into that problem. This is a Blumhouse movie that Blumhouse does this so well. They give you $5 to $10 million to make a movie, and they just fucking kill it every single time lately. From a box office standpoint, this one doesn't have the requirements to make it seem bigger. Like you don't get a good sense of where they are, because you never see that big giant sweeping shot of like the forest, and it zooms into the car. It's very boxed in as far as where they are location wise. It's a lot of close-ups, and then it's just a lot of medium shots. There's not a lot of setup for where they're at, so it doesn't feel like a big movie. You can see that they didn't stretch the budget. They just kept the budget confined to what it was. Whereas in, some of their other projects, like The Conjuring, it feels like a huge movie.
Sure, and I get that. This one is, like you're saying, it's a typical Blumhouse where it works on that small budget, that micro budget, and it's more about story and characters and hopefully the frights that whatever story they're telling is going to bring. But something like Halloween works on the same micro budget. It's small, confined, and still is frightening and going to be memorable for all time.
Well, look, it has Village of the Damned threads. It has Stepford Wives threads. I mean, yeah, there's nothing new in that sense. I think in the end, it's the ultimate way. It's the way. It's the process. It's the what's the fucking word I'm looking for? It's the way that it went about being made, like how it was made. It's like, yeah, you could go about things in the way of something like Village of the Damned, which is just dour and dark and quiet, or you could. I think it's the approach. That's what I was looking for. The approach of this film is what I think is kind of original, because it's not taking itself seriously, but it's not like some hilarious comedy either. It's not like a slapstick comedy, but it's It's almost like it's in on the joke. Here's the strangeness, and here's like you said, you didn't find it that intense. I found it really intense, like especially when you see characters like Walter and Georgina pop up and you don't know what the hell's going on with those people.
So on the gulp gauge, I'm going to score Get Out. I'm going to give it a 5. I still think it's a solid movie. At times, I think the acting is really great in this movie. I am interested to see what this director will do next. I just think that there's tonal issues that and kind of cliches that keep me from loving this film or giving it higher marks. But I'm really a sucker for a good Twilight Zone type of story. So, I'm interested in this kind of film. I want more films like this. I just wish this one could have been a bit more effective.
I love how they go just balls to the wall with like the craziness that is the ending too, like and how characters do things that you would not expect them to do. So I love that they just went for it at the end. I was on board the whole movie. I never lost interest. I get someone who I totally understand like your point of view, and I agree with a lot of the things that you said. Sometimes I just don't care about those things, and I'm just like, hey, whatever. This movie's fun. This movie's crazy. I'm loving it. On my gulp gauge, I'm going to go ahead and give Get Out 7.75 gulps.
That's our review for Get Out. Thanks for listening. Sorry we've been gone for so long. We've been on the road. We've been sick. There's been a lot of things that have come up.
Oh, not to mention the last thing. The producing in this movie was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, I definitely think Blumhouse knocked it out of the park with another great film. Keep it coming. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere you can find Cinema Gulp. This has been John.
This has been We Drink Your Cinema.
I drink it up!